Hello, welcome. It's Radio Free Nintendo. I'm James Jones. I'm joined today by Mr. Greg Lay.
Ahoy, ahoy, everyone.
Mr. Guillaume Vayette.
Good evening. But by the way, I need something punchier for my intro. It doesn't really work. Sometimes I say hello.
Guillaume's here!
Sometimes, no, I need something.
On your side.
If listeners have an idea, I'm all ears. But like, hello, sometimes I say it. That sounds too much like ahoy, hoy. And good evening is like, well, who knows if it's the evening or what.
Just start every episode the way I would if I wasn't introducing you, which is, man, fuck you, Lindemann. Just
sure.
Every episode. Like, even if he's not here, which, by the way, John Lindemann's not here this week, again. Just drop it. Like, he'll never hear it. He might not even hear it on episodes he's on. Where'd you say it? It's all open.
So just a hearty go to hell, John?
Yeah.
Or, okay.
Just right out of the gate. Like, he hasn't done anything yet, but he will. He'll earn it. We know that. We're aware. It's gonna happen. You're just getting out in front of it. You're a thought leader.
Sure.
It's July 27th, 2023. This is episode 833. 833? Yes. Last week I named the episode after Alex Jones's prepper business, so this week we can't go worse than that. And we're going to start the show with... We're going to make you wait for Pikmin 4. We're going to start the show with email, and then we're going to get to Pikmin 4, and that's pretty much going to be the entirety of our new business segment. So we're going to kick it off with email, and I'll read this one. Andrew writes, Gentlemen, the recently announced Super Mario RPG... Well, it was more recent when we got the email. The recently announced Super Mario RPG remake has been listed with a $60 price tag. I feel like $60 is a little steep. The game is getting an audiovisual facelift, but the gameplay looks largely unchanged. I like the game, but it's still an SNES game. I already own the original game in multiple formats, on the Wii U VC and on the SNES Classic Mini. I imagine many big-time Nintendo fans are in the same boat. For comparison, here are the launch prices of some other re-releases of older games on Switch. Live Alive, $50. Metroid Prime Remastered, $40. Pikmin 1 and 2 bundle, $50. Live Alive is also an SNES game, but was being localized for the first time. Metroid Prime offers a beautiful recreation of the GameCube game at a lower price. And the Pikmin games, while apparently pretty straightforward ports, are cheaper together than Super Mario RPG is by itself. Do you think that Super Mario RPG will sell well at $60? The Mario brand carries a lot of weight, but we recently saw with Mario plus Rabbids: Spark of Hope. It's not Sparks of Hope, isn't it just singular Spark?
No, I think it's Sparks of Hope.
Okay. It is not a guarantee for strong sales. Interested to hear your thoughts. Ubisoft fucked that game up. Like, I cannot believe they didn't wait for the movie to come out.
Yeah, it all seems a bit kind of disorganized, doesn't it, I suppose, but, on the other hand, it had been quite a number of years since that first game, so maybe they just felt like, well, it was, they needed to get on with it, but they subsequently have suggested that, it would have been better if it had been, an early game for a new Nintendo hardware, the way that the first one was. So, yeah, it's one way or another, it seems like they didn't get the timing right. But it is an interesting case, the Mario plus Rabbids in general, that we've talked about in the past, in that it's one of the very rare occasions where you can even see a game with Mario as, the star in the, the artwork on the eShop or on the box in a retail store, where you could get it for a reasonably low price, so many months or years after the game came out. Like, that does not happen to games with Mario in it in general. Yeah, that is the exception.
With Sparks of Hope, like, people were saying, like, hold the line before the game was even out. They were like, this will go down in price. Don't worry about it. You just have to be patient.
That's the thing. Because I know, exactly. Because, the fact of the matter was, I think Mario plus Rabbids and the fact that they made a sequel very much, would you suggest this anyway, in the most superficial way, was successful. And yet it got really quite cheap. So, like, whatever happened to the sequel, whether it done better than it appears to have done, it still would have gone down in price in a way that games that star Mario don't. Otherwise, so
right.
that is the fact of the matter. This Super Mario RPG, there's some similarity with the Rabbids situation in terms of, obviously, back in the day, it was a collaboration with an outside, company and developers and stuff. Yoko Shimomura, did she do some music for the new Rabbids game? The Sparks of Hope.
Yep. Yes.
For instance, so there's some overlap there, but, the fact that this is, Nintendo is publishing it, unlike, something where obviously, they kind of loaned out Mario and then Ubisoft is handling everything after that with the Rabbids game. It was never terribly likely that it was going to be a lower price. And it's not very likely that it will go down more than the sort of like 30% that they allow, seemingly, isn't it?
Yes.
That is basically the because I mean, with Live Alive again, as you mentioned, that it's like the HD 2D remake of that on Switch was lower to begin with, but it also goes on steeper discount as a result. Like I think it was like 50% off in the last European eShop sale. And again, not likely to happen to Super Mario RPG.
Right. I don't know if it's got that big of a discount in North America, but yeah. I mean, in general, you're right.
I mean, the other thing to keep in mind is that part of the reason this is going to be higher is Square Enix needs to get their cut. Like,
that's the thing. It is a bit of a, there are multiple parties involved. They were the original developers. They can have the credit for creating a number of the characters that were involved in that game, and therefore, in this one. So, it's like that. That's the other part. You've got to split this pie up a bit. So, you're not gonna, it's even less likely to start at, under full, quote unquote, full price, as we've kind of generally regarded $60 to be, although, of course, with like Tears of the Kingdom, going above it, even in America now, and, obviously the other systems charge more than 60. I mean, I guess, probably the time has passed for even really referring to that as full price.
So, I would say that it's more expensive because Square Enix got to get their beak wet. Metroid Prime is probably. I mean, I think it's unfair to compare this unfavorably to the Metroid Prime remake. Yeah, I get that Metroid Prime's a 3D game, but this is a 3D game now. This game is being remade in a 3D game engine. Like it isn't a bunch of sprites.
No, it was. I mean, obviously, they made the sprites based on renders. There would be the things that were made on computer graphics workstations back then. But it was still sprites at the end of the day. You do now have to rebuild all of those in polygonal graphics in a way that obviously Metroid Prime Remastered definitely going well beyond the sort of Pikmin 1 and 2 scope, where it's like, no, we are going to do new geometry, more sophisticated geometry for the polygonal environments, but you had a polygonal basis for the game at least.
Yeah, and they didn't come up with a new art style. Like, this isn't like a huge departure, but there's definitely new artistic expression in this game because there had to be. Just because of the changes in the graphics engine and the technology, like they had to come up with a new style.
Yeah, but I still get what Andrew is talking about because it looks very much like the same physics as much as those games have physics, like the same combat system. Didn't show any new areas. I don't think we should assume that there's going to be anything new to the game. If there is, I kind of wonder
how desirable it would be. Yeah.
Exactly, because I never felt like, like I would take way more of this Mario RPG than there is, and it's not a thought I've had.
in retrospect, probably like more so. I think it's talked about as a plus about the game, that it's like it isn't like crazy long. It's like a nice size for an RPG if you're not somebody that loves them taking 80 hours plus like every time. Like it is like what considered to be a lot of the time one of its virtues, but obviously that may be oftentimes coming more from a place of people having paid $8 for it on the virtual console than it is for people potentially paying $60 for a remake. So how much that remains considered a virtue, I guess, is yet to be seen. But I was thinking of stuff like with Chrono Trigger DS, and they've got like the dimensional vortices or whatever, and it's like it's okay, I guess. Just kind of walking around some extra stuff and fighting like a super boss at the end of like a bunch of other like battling, but it's it really very much take it or leave it type of stuff, really. And you kind of feel like if there were more added to Super Mario RPG, it probably would be similar to that, but I don't. Also, we have only glimpsed the game. I don't want to assume too much about anything about it at this stage in terms of how much they've. We already talked about could they have changed some things in terms of accessibility. With regard to like the time button inputs and stuff, like maybe more options there, and this like meter that was showing up in the battle footage in the Nintendo Direct presentation, what does that pertain to? There's still things we don't know about the game, and I think one of the most interesting is going to be, how well the navigation performs, because that was one of the kind of weaknesses of it, in the sense that for me, I thought, and I think this is not, an uncommon complaint or observation, that because it's isometric, but they are also kind of doing like Mario stuff in the overworld, platforming, this kind of stuff, you get some awkwardness with that. It's almost always the case with isometric type games, isn't it? You know what I mean? Like if you just want to do stuff where it's like, okay, let me just walk along this platform and then jump a gap, it's more difficult than it is, if you didn't have that isometric perspective. I wonder if there's anything about rebuilding the game in a true polygonal 3D, even though it's clearly for what we've seen so far seems to be adopting the same general perspective. Just, with like modern controls and whatever, is there anything they're doing that might make that like more, smooth and less apt to like go wrong? Cause that, I think would be a significant improvement. It wasn't like anything that was terribly detrimental to the original game. For me, it didn't bring it all the way down or anything, but, if there's anything they could do to kind of make that navigation of the environment a bit smoother, given this particular perspective, it would be welcome.
Well, I've got an innovative, solution for you. What if they cram the NES Online with isometric games like Equinox right before Mario RPG comes out, so that by comparison, Mario RPG just feels like it plays fantastic.
You're trained as well. Yeah. Well, you got Light Crusader, the treasure game on the expansion pack, and
maybe release like one of those like special versions that brings you to the end or something, to bring it back to top of mind. Like just have people like at least like play with like an actually bad playing isometric game, or at least an older one, and then Mario will look good.
You know what? I like it. You see, now you're thinking like a true marketer. Like just poison the well and then go around selling bottled water. It's genius. I love it.
Finally, are we going to get to J and G? Or
I need you to sell people plastic crap. Pull that off, and you did it. You got it. If you can get people to buy plastic crap that's somehow less useful than Amiibo, you win.
Excellent. So, but ultimately, the question Andrew is asking is that does Mario RPG as a game have a bigger kind of reach, like can reach more people who were not fans of it originally than Metroid Prime did with, remastered?
Let me turn that question on it. Let's say it reaches the number of people who played these games when they were new. Congratulations, you just beat Metroid Prime.
Did you?
Probably.
Metroid Prime, the first one, was a pretty big deal. It sold
On the
really
Game-
well.
Yeah, but it was relative to the
GameCube.
GameCube. Yeah, I mean, I don't. Super Mario RPG obviously it didn't come out everywhere in the world, which limited, some of its global sales. And it was late Super Nintendo, so
Yeah, I'm not
maybe
sure
some of the
about
heat
its sales.
had gone out of that market by then. But still, like there were 50 million Super Nintendos in the world. Now, you couldn't play on all of those because it was
Right.
just Japan and America, but still. Gotta be probably somewhere in the region of double, how many GameCubes there were around to play the original Metroid Prime anyway.
I'd also say that Super Nintendo emulation has been a thing a lot longer than GameCube emulation, and has probably been a boon for not a boon, but has it dramatically helped increase awareness of some of these games. But honestly, here's the other thing that's probably worth noting. One of these games starts with the word Metroid, and one of them starts with Super Mario.
That's the thing, isn't it? I mean, the fact of the matter is, I think, we've already said, there's no doubt what you're paying for if you choose to pay $60 or the regional equivalent for this game is not that it is a more substantial game than Metroid Prime or Pikmin, the two Pikmin games in that package, or Live Alive for that matter. You're paying for the Mario brand. You're paying for Square's involvement. And you obviously you're paying for the the new graphics and sound. It's not because the actual substance of it is so presumably, again, don't want to get too ahead of ourselves saying we know absolutely the nature of this thing where we haven't even seen that much of it yet. But presumably, the substance of the game is what it is, and really the premium here is all about the graphical overhaul and the parties involved. So that's it. It isn't about the nature of the game.
Well, and Super Mario RPG probably has more widespread in all of Nintendo's markets. I mean, I want to say it only sold like 78,000 Prime. Only sold like 78,000 copies in Japan.
No, exactly. I mean, obviously the GameCube, was not hugely successful in Japan, although I think it, was, represented a little bit of a bounce back from N64 over there, because N64 did really badly there. Like even it certainly did relatively better in the US, the N64. So the GameCube in Japan was obviously not a big success, but it wasn't like a remarkably poor. It wasn't like down on the N64 the way that it was everywhere else in the world. But so it just reflects, I think, the fact that that game being first person, being, having the shooting element and stuff. I don't know how much they even tried to sell it there that aggressively, to be honest. They may have already kind of decided, like, this game is not, it's made outside of Japan, obviously with NCL supervision, but, by Retro Studios, principally targeting the outside market, because Metroid has kind of had a bit more success. So it didn't have a long history at this point.
It was also that era where people were like, oh, Japan doesn't like first person games.
Yeah, exactly. There was a perception of that. And even though it was far from just a bog standard first person shooter of the time, it was pushing, what was, being a little bit sort of, not that there weren't other games that did similar things, of course, but it wasn't just like Doom or anything, but the fact is, it was a first person game with a lot of shooting, and to whatever extent maybe they thought, that wasn't going to be popular in Japan, may have affected their marketing priorities, how much they pushed it, and maybe they pushed Fusion harder there because that's a 2D game, that's a GBA game, a portable game. Even then, it wasn't as ridiculously dominant as it is today in Japan, but it was still relatively more popular even in the early aughts there. So it might have affected some things, but you can't deny it's just not popular. It's just not popular there. It's just not.
Yeah, and look, it's even if it was reasonably popular there, it ain't Mario. Like, it just isn't.
No, and I mean, you got to say this is the other part of it, isn't it? I mean, obviously, there's going to be. Well, Super Mario Brothers Wonder is coming out before this, right?
Correct.
Which I don't know. It might not be
choice.
The best for it. I get it. Look, Super Mario Brothers Wonder is just getting the spot in the release schedule, essentially that Odyssey did, right? In 17, like just that end of October slot. So run up to Black Friday, all that stuff. Like I get it, obviously, but. It does seem a little bit unfortunate because, obviously Mario, it's been a big year for him with the movie and the theme park and, like the conditions are good for, you would think, for selling stuff with Mario on it, but you do wonder whether some of that demand will be kind of satisfied. I mean, look, they're totally different kinds of games. We know that, obviously, but still, I do think that might affect it because they just, we don't know, but if Mario Bros. Wonder is this big success and, everybody's playing that and all that, it might just, take some of the heat out of that. It might be more one of those things where I could get Super Mario RPG later, and then how many people actually do get it later?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, like, maybe the sparks of hope effect will be stronger than we think. It seems like maybe people, when they look for... okay, maybe scratch that. I don't know, like, I think that maybe people who look for Mario games are maybe not looking for turn-based games, but then Origami King did more than all right. So, what do I know?
Yeah. No, I think... I mean, look, I felt like Sparks of Hope's marketing was bad, and we had talking rabbids. Like, I want the rabbids to be on screen less. I certainly don't want them fucking talking. and look, I'm still of the opinion that the rabbids are toxic, and their inclusion in the first game was largely like, I can deal with this because the game plays well. The reviews weren't as good for Sparks of Hope.
Yeah, I mean, when you read some of the reviews I read, did the substance of the reviews were often, it could be regarded as a significant kind of improvement, but maybe because ultimately, and it had some significant differences, like the change in the way the movement worked. So it's not like it was entirely duplicative or that people didn't see it as being like a sort of creditable kind of evolution of what had gone before. But I don't think it lacked the impact, because obviously some of the impact of that first was it's early on in a system's life. It's this weird kind of crossover. The announcement of the game, or not, in that it got leaked before it got announced. I think it was one of these stories where it's like, oh, it's actually good. You know what I mean? Like, because some of the stuff coming into it was not that encouraging or not that professional. So it was like, oh, actually, this crossover that like you said, with these characters in the Rabbids, that whatever they're popular, how many games they can claim to have sold and all that, there's certainly going to be a significant portion of your kind of gaming enthusiasts that do regard them as kind of just like not appealing characters, not something that's going to be increasing their willingness to buy something. I think it was a little bit of a kind of underdog story in a weird way, that the first one, and then this doesn't have that because the first game already exists.
Yeah, I mean, I would say that you're right. There's a portion of the audience that I would say can tolerate the Rabbids, and then there are people who have fucking eyes and ears.
Aversion. Just outright aversion, yeah.
No, sure. I just think they have auditory and visual capacity, because there's no way if you have both of those things, you can look at the Rabbids and go, these are fine characters.
Well, I mean, aren't the minions kind of similar? And
they're exactly the same.
Yeah, so I mean, that whole movie franchise is a big thing, and then Nintendo teamed up with the people that made that to make a Mario movie that made $1 billion. So it's just like, that's a lot of people with very compromised.
It's a lot of 6-year-olds. They're not.
Sure, you don't regard them as people. So the point, but all of that, leaving all of that aside, because I don't want to get to, because Guillaume is quite right. The other Mario spin-offs with turn-based stuff have already existed. And I think that is like the Paper Mario games, like the Mario and Luigi games. And I would have to assume that Nintendo and Square in this kind of, joint venture are, calibrating their expectations mostly based on those, versus, anything else, versus, Mario plus Rabbids games or anything like that. I think that's probably the key point. And therefore, we must assume that they've kind of, budgeted the game accordingly, and kind of have sales expectations accordingly. As we said many times, you look at Mario sports games; they tend to sell somewhere in the region of like 3 million. So it's not. Maybe they've got somewhat higher expectations for this, or depending on a few different factors. But I would guess it's like they're not under the impression that just because it's got Mario on it, it should sell 10 million. Because they've got loads of games that they probably consider successful because they didn't budget for them to have to sell 10 million. Your Mario Tennis Aces or something, that goes out there, it sells whatever it's that came a little bit earlier, so it's probably like the higher compared to like Golf and Strikers and stuff. Might be more like 4 or something, but it's, it's not 10 million. And I'm sure they were happy with that and all that. So whatever the expectations they've probably got are, that, yes, the Mario name will carry it to some extent. But equally, it's not like crazy. What they've got in mind for Super Mario Brothers Wonder is going to be vastly bigger, so presumably that is why they're quite happy to have them come out weeks apart, is because ultimately it's just like, we know this is like a kind of relatively niche kind of side dish, in the Mario buffet.
Let me toss one more variable on this whiteboard of market planning. So, one thing that this game might benefit from is the addition of the tickets. Like, I'm blanking on what they're called now. The vouchers.
Yeah.
So having this game be $50 effectively negates its value as a voucher consumer. But having it be $60, well, now the voucher is worth something. So this could be people might have bought a voucher for Tears of the Kingdom when they reintroduced the voucher, used it on Pikmin 4. Well, time to buy another set of vouchers for Mario Wonder, and oh, hey, look, another game I can drop a voucher on. Like all of this is factoring into Nintendo's math. Like they're like, okay, let's figure out how much do we got to give Square Enix to make them happy. How much do we need to make on the take for us to be able to make up the cost of producing this thing? How many vouchers are currently floating out in the ecosystem? Because I'm sure they have a board somewhere in Kyoto that has the exact number of open vouchers per region, and they're just tracking them. Like, what games do we think can potentially consume vouchers? And I could absolutely see somebody saying, well, I'll use a voucher on Super Mario RPG. And get it for effectively what, $52? There's a piece of all of this that comes into play, and so I would assume that all factored in. I think Metroid Prime's lower cost is in part marketing. Like they wanted people to buy Metroid Prime because Metroid Prime 4 hasn't been shown since it was not even a logo. It was an apology video about the fact that Metroid Prime 4 got restarted, and that itself was half a decade ago at this point.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. No, I started with 19. I want to say, was it 19?
Something like that, yeah.
So it's getting on for that, yeah.
So Metroid Prime 4, or excuse me, Metroid Prime Remaster is doing work beyond just generating revenue.
Yeah, people, this was not an uncommon observation. That right. Was like the feeling that the price and the name kind of somewhat undersold, like had elements of the graphical overhaul to that game, but I guess, as you said, some of it is because, they felt like, this is a brand, that they're trying to build up, and, they're trying to sort of, make it just like, okay, this game is going to be, we're not going to overprice it. We're not going to try and make it just for the biggest fans, because yes, they're going to get it. Sure. We think, but it's not, the Metroid is not so popular that just the biggest fans getting it is all that sort of impactful for Nintendo,
right.
So they're probably looking at it more as a brand growth exercise, whereas I mean the Mario brand has grown a lot this year actually, but in many ways it doesn't really need to. It's already fucking massive.
Yeah, I mean Metroid Prime 4 for how many I mean nigh on a decade of development, it's gonna need to sell a lot of copies to make back that investment.
Whatever sort of, we don't know, because obviously these sorts of things go on behind the scenes all the time. Games get made, they get so far, they junk them halfway through. Sometimes they get mothballed, indefinitely, even when they're finished. We're just not supposed to know this stuff. And the only reason why we do is because of, apologizing for Federation Force, basically. That's why we know these things that we shouldn't otherwise know. But still, we don't know the full extent of the costs involved, how far they got with any of these sort of dead ends that they ended up hitting with development. But it's just two franchises, two brands in completely different places, and it's not to do with the substance of the games. But there is still a somewhat legitimate question, I think, that Andrew raises about, will underneath all that, all those commercial imperatives, there is, arguably something of a difference in the substance of the games, and how much does that hurt the sales? But I think Nintendo have got enough data to work with based on, some of their other kinds of, spin-offs that Mario's had, to get a good guess of how much they can sell of this game at $60, and they probably aren't going to get it that wrong.
And hey, there's Nintendo usually does a sale in the spring.
Yeah, your 30% off is going to happen at some point, presumably. Like that is, they've held pretty firm over the years in terms of, not doing the really deep discounts that other, publishers will do. And, that's why to go back to the beginning, the Mario plus Rabbids thing is, such an outlier. But, they do have essentially regularized the 30% cut. That is a thing that happens, not super frequently, but it does happen every now and again. Like, they'll have slightly different tranches of games on sale when they do a major sale, so it's not like everything is 30% off at the same time. And so the gaps between a particular title being 30% off might be quite long. So, they'd certainly keep it much tighter than just about anybody else, and it works for them, but it will happen, I would have thought.
And if it underperforms their expectations on November, it'll be about 4 months around the time their spring sale kicks in. That might be enough time for them to go, okay, we'll give this one the gas now.
There are basically two kinds of games that really, really you don't see either very often or at all getting the 30% cut. It's either the absolute apex sort of sellers.
Tears of the Kingdom.
Mario Kart 8, to be fair, has gone on sale, it's rare compared to the others. Or it's the ones that sell fuck all. Like, they will not put, I don't think you'll be seeing Famicom Detective Club on sale ever. They just seem to go, basically, you know what, when it's that, when it lands with that much of a thud, it's pointless. It's pointless trying to, gin it up. Just leave it where it is, and anybody that actually wants this game is going to have to pay up for it. And I think Sharp FE is similar as well. I don't think that goes on sale very often, or if at all. So, that everything in the middle, with the vast majority of things will tend to get that 30% cut, and I would have thought Mario RPG will find its way there.
It's the leave all men behind. Like, if you can't keep up, we're leaving your ass.
Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
It seems like Tokyo Mirage Sessions in North America has gone on sale 3 times since 2020, I guess.
Well, there you go. I guess maybe this is a little bit of a difference with Nintendo of Europe, because certainly with the Famicom Detective Club over here, like, not only does it not go on sale, but you have to buy them together. You don't get the option to buy them separately. So they're just like, you are paying full, quote unquote, full price for that if you want it at all. I think I got Sharp FE, like, at launch. So I haven't tracked it that closely, but I thought that was maybe kind of similar over here anyway. But yeah, maybe they've treated it a bit differently in America.
I got an idea to wrap this up, how to drum up sales for games that nobody's buying. You know, we talk about, drop the price. That might get people, raise the price. Raise it up. Raise it hard. Like, not, make this $40 game make this $40 game an $80 game.
Next week it's going to be $120, so you better get it.
But, like, don't explain it. Offer no explanation. Just put out a press release saying, we've reevaluated the prices of some of our back catalog games, and then list the 3 games that you've raised the price an extraordinary amount on. And they're games that nobody would play, or nobody is buying, and just see if you drum up some sales for people going, what the fuck? Or say effective, July 1st, and you send this out June 18th. We will be raising the price of these games, and see if you just scare tactic people into.
They've done their little experiments with, we're taking away Super Mario 3D All Stars forever and Fire Emblem, NES and all this kind of stuff. So I don't know whether I'd put it past them altogether.
We will keep raising the price of this game until you buy it. Buy it now.
It's the Blazing Saddles hostage situation.
Yes. This is elite level marketing. That's marketing with an edge. All right, let's move on to the next email. Guillaume, would you please?
Sure. The Jumping Man writes, "Hi, gentlemen. I'm afraid to say that I've officially come down with collecting fatigue. I can't exactly pinpoint when it started, but in recent years, I've noticed there's been a drastic uptick in the number of items to collect in Nintendo titles. I've thoroughly enjoyed the likes of Mario Odyssey, Tears of the Kingdom, and even Kirby and the Forgotten Land, but with the obscene amount of items to collect and objectives to complete in each, it's beginning to wear me down. I just can't accept game developers classifying this as quote-unquote exploration anymore. It feels like I'm completing a checklist for no reason. Do we need to collect over 1,000 Korok Seeds, 900 Power Moons, 200 plus, 250 plus figures, or 200 plus, or complete over 200 side quests? This has also made me wonder how the critical consensus has shifted to a maximalist, quote-unquote, more is more mentality. I distinctly remember a game like Donkey Kong 64 receiving much derision for its sheer amount of collecting, but comparing it to today's titles feels tame by comparison. Heck, it still gets mocked for this very same reason to this day. Back in the N64/GameCube days, the term collectathon even had a negative stigma attached to it. Which leads me to my question. Have you noticed how the general consensus has changed or stance on collecting as a whole, with video game publications not even acknowledging this as a gameplay flaw anymore? And do you miss video games having tighter, more compact amounts of collecting? Banjo-Kazooie being an exemplary example of how to do collecting right. Enjoy the show immensely every week. Thank you for all you do. P.S. P.S. James.
Go for it.
James, how about those Reds? I'm not a fan of that team, but as an avid baseball fan, it's been fun watching them become an unexpected success this year.
I'm glad we're not playing the fucking Brewers anymore. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, well, it's been the whole season so far in the NL Central has been, from my perspective, just seeing the odd game and just watching the standings, remarkably streaky. Everybody's like has these red hot runs, but then the coldest of cold runs. Like, I mean, you think of the Pirates got started off really well, and then just recently they've slipped behind the Cards for the last in the division.
Yeah, the Cards are terrible.
And the Cards have had a pretty rotten season for most of the time, without being true. Like, the Cubs had like some hot streaks, and then they've had some, and then the Reds have had recently quite a few really good runs, but still like the odd like 5-game losing streak in there. It's gotta be the streakiest division in MLB.
The problem is the schedule maker is changed in baseball, and they went with the fucking even scheduling, which I hate. Just play your division. How about that? Just play your division. I don't give a shit about when the Reds...
with the 13 instead of 19, right? How many games you play each division rival.
I don't need to see the Reds travel to fucking Seattle. Like, I have no interest in that game, even though there's a bunch of former Reds on the Mariners. So maybe that's not the best. I don't need to see them play the Texans. Jesus, the Rangers.
I mean, the recent years, maybe the Texans should have taken up baseball instead of football.
Yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, I don't need them to go to the Rangers. There's no point in that. Like, nobody cares about that game. Don't play it. It doesn't give me another series against my divisional opponents, or at least like let me, if you're going to make us play a bunch of interleague games, which I don't like interleague play. Fuck it.
Yeah, well, they're just forced into it at the minute with the 15-15 split.
Yeah. Like, make it focused on your pair division. So
I'm not by any means any kind of authority on baseball, but I thought it was a curious decision considering you have 162 games. It is difficult to make many of them seem particularly important.
Right.
But when it's a division game, that does make it seem relatively important. So taking those away, I thought was an interesting choice. But, I'm sure they have their reasons. They have data underpinning it, and,
it's just about a hunk of metal. It's fine. So the schedule maker is on cocaine. It's the only explanation. Because the Reds played, and I'm not kidding, basically 2 series against the Brewers right before the All-Star break. Yeah, and then 2 series against them right after. They played like 24 games since the second week of June.
The thing that kills me about that when I see stuff like that, not just those 2 teams in the schedule now, is like, yeah, that's like most of the games they'll play against each other this year.
That's all of them. We're done playing the Brewers for the rest of the season.
It just strikes me as even weirder than ever that like you could play so many series in a short period of time. But again,
I think the dumb thing is, I think we've only played the Cubs for 2 series so far.
Yeah,
like, we've got so many Cubs games left.
Yeah, and sometimes, like, I've seen some teams' schedules, like, and it's like, oh yeah, and they play each other 7 times in the last, like, 2 weeks of the season. So it's like which is, again, a majority, because it's 13 games. So it's like you can have 2 division rivals, and you can get all the way to the last 10 days, 2 weeks of the season, and then they're going to play the majority of their games. It's weird. I think it's weird.
I think we played almost all of our Brewers games in the last month. Like, I think
the only thing I can say is
absurd.
The only thing I can say is, like I said, on the one hand, you've got fewer division games as a total, which is odd because those are the most important games, but it does make the ones that are left even more important in a way by making them more scarce. So there is
and for whatever reason, we just couldn't deal with the Brewers. I don't know what it is. Like, they played really well against us, and we played dog shit against them. Yeah. So, all right. So Brewers, All-Star break, Brewers again, Giants, Diamondbacks, Brewers again. It's like so in that time, let me go back. All right. So that's July. We played the only NL Central teams we played in July were the Brewers. We get what? Let's go back to June. Well, how did June start? Oh, a series against the Brewers. It was Brewers, Dodgers, Cardinals. Hey, there they are. Royals. Okay, Astros. What's with this AL streak? What the fuck's happening here? The godforsaken Rockies. The Braves. Great. Thank you, baseball. Love that. A series at the Orioles again. Who asked for that series? And then the Padres. And then we're sitting here like playing the Nash. So they sent. All right, this is how fucked up the schedule is. They sent the Reds to Baltimore to play the Orioles. Sent them back to play the Padres.
And then back to the Beltway after.
And then sent them back to play the Nationals so they could send them to Milwaukee so they could send them back to Colorado, which is where they were to start the whole fucking thing.
Yeah, that's the other thing. It was definitely driving the air miles up this less division play, you got to think, in most cases, which is an interesting choice in the current times, isn't it?
Oh my God, so many if you exclude that June series, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games against the Brewers in July.
No, it's 9 out of a season's worth of 13. It's really, really strange. But there it is. That presumably does explain some of these weird scheduling elements. Some of why it's been a streaky for a lot of the teams in the division. But it still seems unnaturally streaky to me, that division so far this season.
It is. It is. I mean, it's weird. Yes.
Yeah. All right. So as for the question, are we tired of collecting?
No.
I'm kind of I completely disagree with the Jumping Men here. It's I think we're in a golden age of games where they don't necessarily put a checklist in front of you. They just let you explore and you find cool shit. And then you feel good about it. And I think one of the, maybe like this is neurodiversity issue or something, like some people cannot do this, but if you can, just stop when you're sick of it.
Let it go. Absolutely.
Yeah, just don't play it if you can't do it.
But I realize like some people like find that inconceivable for reasons beyond, I don't know,
but
nurture.
My answer to that is, if you really can't do it, then just don't buy these games.
I guess that's the thing. Is that it's kind of a shame if that's true, right? Because you feel like you're going to end up missing out on a lot of stuff you would enjoy.
But if it's making you miserable,
but if somehow you really do get caught in this sort of trap, of both really only comes about as a particular intersection of, the way the game is designed on the one hand, but it wouldn't affect everyone that way, but people with certain kinds of kind of instincts or like compulsions, it draws them into effectively a sort of trap where they can't get out of it and they can't enjoy the rest of the game, I guess,
Yeah, I mean, what I would say on these is like, I was dumbfounded by people who were upset by how many moons are in Super Mario Odyssey. Like, you could just go to the store and buy moons. What the hell? And my response was, cool. Like, I like number get big. Numbers
go up.
Yeah. Actually, I think that of all the examples, Mario Odyssey is probably the one that I agree with the Jumping Man the most, just because I didn't feel like the exploration was all that good to get the moons in the first place, Like, there were a lot of power moons that were like, go over here and butt stomp, and like, there's nothing here.
But
just butt stomp it. Okay. So you get a moon. Okay, but like, so what?
That's it. So what? The moons aren't that important. That's why you can just go buy them. But then,
why? Yeah, but why did you make me go there if it wasn't to make me see something cool?
It didn't make you go there. There's so many extra moons in Mario Odyssey.
But you don't necessarily know. That's the thing. I'm saying that Mario Odyssey did this less well than a game like Tears of the Kingdom does.
I think it did it great. Because, like, to me, if there was a moon that was giving me any trouble, I don't need to worry about it, because
you can go and buy one. I get that, but like there were missions, that you could do, and maybe you were intrigued by what you would have to do to go get a moon. But then it turns out that the thing that you had to do was boring, and so I don't necessarily, I thought it was just
hit
weak.
The bricks. If you thought it was boring, just stop.
Yeah, sure. But that's the thing. Like, by the time that you realize that the mission was boring, it's kind of too late.
Well, see, what I would
you've
say
already
is,
done it.
Yeah, what I would say is the thing about the Odyssey that I think makes it work really well is that they don't take very long. Like, they're super fast. So even if that one is boring, well, okay, this 40-second adventure was boring. I'm sorry. Like, I feel like
it just wasn't much of a 40-second adventure. I think that they could have replaced it with a more fun 40 seconds. But that's the thing. Like, I just, I think that in Tears of the Kingdom, I wish now I had taken notes, but like there were things, oh yeah, okay. So there's like this quest like from a stable owner who wants you to take a picture of these columns in the sunrise.
Yeah.
And I didn't think much of it. Like all the stable owners want to get a picture. They all want you to go get a specific thing. But then once you do get there, you're there for the sunrise, you take the picture. If you linger just the right amount of time, then you get the solution to a puzzle that you didn't even know was there. Like there's the slab on the ground, and when the shadow of one of the columns reaches the slab, it opens up, and so you can go get the reward inside. And I was like, holy shit, I saw the slab. I didn't even notice that slab. I saw a slab in a different spot. And I couldn't figure out how to open that. And now I did this thing for the stable owner, and now I know what the solution is. So, so that was a cool adventure, even though the reward for taking the picture itself, it's never so that great. It's usually just a meal, and some money.
Yeah, but
the reward was like discovering something cool about this game's world. Whereas in Mario Odyssey, I swear, I think at some point, you're in the middle of the desert, dressed up as some Mexican stereotype, and you just butt stomp this random bit of sand where there's nothing. There's nothing.
Yeah.
And you get something. And it's not, it doesn't feel rewarding. It didn't feel good to get there, to try to find it, triangulate exactly where the Power Moon was. And ultimately, it was kind of a waste of time.
Guillaume finds $100 on the gun. He goes, "Fuck! I didn't earn this. This sucks." No, I think to me, I thought the moons, they basically devalued them deliberately. I think they deliberately.
Yeah, no, I'm sure. I just don't think that it was a good move, especially.
I don't agree. I think there is so much good content in that game. There's a ton of good content in that game, and if you only do the good content, you will have enough to finish the game. It's just like, here's other stuff you can also do.
Yeah.
And I kind of took it. It's been, quite a few years now. So, and I've not really played it that much since it came out. So, it's not crystal clear, everything. But I took it the way they kind of, set things up in Mario Odyssey. I took it as an attempt to accommodate more different types of players for a 3D platformer, in the sense that, obviously something like 3D Land, 3D World, games that I very, very much enjoyed. Love them. But obviously, there's other elements like the kind of, the additional coins and whatnot to pick up to unlock stuff and whatever. Green stars, I think they use in 3D World for whatever reason. It seems really strange. But those are the kind of extra things you find and, all this stuff. But basically, it's point to point, right? You get to the end of you get to the goal, much more in the vein of the 2D Mario games. With Odyssey, it kind of felt like they've got a bunch of these linear challenges embedded in the more open environments, right? Sometimes you sort of morph into the wall and you play out a little 8-bit Mario thing, or sometimes you just find like a more linear challenge, just again embedded in this world. But it kind of felt like, maybe they thought, if for people who might struggle with those types of things, there's an alternate way to get the moons you need to progress, and it's more about, I'm just tooling around, I'm just going in any direction, and I trip over one, or I do a butt stomp, or I pick up currency and use that to buy them, or whatever else. This idea of, make it more of a, what style of game do you want to play? You know what I mean? Like, well, if you are, because a 3D platformer, there are more different ways you can kind of put a spin on it, and previous 3D Mario games had varied in terms of how much is it about linear assault course style challenges and how much is it about wandering around an open space. And this felt their attempt to kind of reconcile those things in a way was to say, well, what do you want to do? And then have it go that way. So, yeah, I don't know that they're absolutely entirely effective in every way or, every different little thing that they kind of made. But I think that, it was a kind of admirable, sort of endeavor, the intent there to try and to give, different types of preferences, different styles that people like a chance to progress through the game. And certainly for me, as someone who's very much a Mario veteran, grew up playing the fucking special world in Super Mario World and stuff, like there was still the linear challenges in there with teeth to enjoy. But for people who might not, have been up for that, they could still feel like they were, playing and enjoying the game fully as well.
Yeah, let me give some context on when we talk about collectathons and why Mario Odyssey is not one of them. So I need you to go back to the way back times of the late 90s, early 2000s as an N64 owner, exclusive N64 owner.
Which I was not.
Yes, I know. But I was, and Greg was an N64 owner as well.
Very much so, yes.
And so we lived through the very, very dry times where we were getting an inordinate number of collectathons, but much other things were not available to us. And there's a game that came out called Donkey Kong 64. And Donkey Kong 64 is a true collectathon. And let me give you an idea why. And Star Fox Adventures is also a collectathon. It seems to get ignored. The thing with Donkey Kong 64 is...
Well, DK64 was really successful. That's the thing that people don't... Like, for an N64 game, and it came out in 99 as, the game, right? It was like November...
it got a huge marketing blitz.
Yeah, so, they pushed it. It's not, that much of a shot, and it's... Donkey Kong name has a certain amount of cachet. DKC was a big deal. So, but the way that it sort of lives on as this sort of, risible thing, people, and the fact that the N64 in general was not that successful, people might not realize it sold a lot, especially relatively, with the rest of the N64
especially
library.
Because you needed to have a piece of hardware that to make it even work on the system.
Yeah, that surely didn't help. That effectively drove the price up, and yet it still did well.
Yeah, so this game asks you to collect DK's stolen golden banana hoard. Now, there's no implication that the value comes from them being gold. They are bananas. DK is going to eat bananas made out of gold. He is a fucking idiot. So that is the starting point from which the game departs. K. Rool stole golden bananas. No implication that these are bananas that happen to be gold colored. These are things made of gold that DK intends to eat because, I repeat, he is an idiot. To collect golden bananas, you need to collect members of the DK crew. There are a significant number of them. They are hidden throughout multiple stages.
Okay, but who are they? Can you tell me, maybe in the form of a rap?
This is where it's like the absence of John has just never been more excruciating, has it? Let me just look at the official bio here. Oh, yes, it does fire. It fires in spurts, I understand.
Maybe we'll call him the ghost of John to do the rap. I don't know.
There's got to be a record. There is a recording of John doing the DK rap because Carly set it to music at some point.
Yeah.
It's out there. So you collect a bunch of idiots, and I'm going to be clear, the DK crew in this game is not particularly appealing, broadly speaking. To answer Guillaume's question, I will not rap it, but lyrically, the crew is Donkey Kong, Diddy Kong. I believe Tiny is the next one introduced, Lanky, and then Chunky. I believe that's the order that they are introduced in. And so the crew in question, you collect them, and then in order to open the doors, so like Mario 64, you collected the stars, and then there were star gates. These doors that would be in the castle, you had to have a certain number of stars to progress.
You had to figure out the constellations of the destination to, and then from the starting point. Yeah.
Banjo-Kazooie had the jiggies. You had to have X number of jiggies to progress to the next set of stages.
Did you know if you got all 120, James Spader appeared on the roof of Peach's castle?
You know what? Now I want to go play Mario 64 again, so that's fine.
And then on the DS version, Kurt Russell was playable, finally.
Wow.
I want James Spader to be playable. I feel like that would be a more unpleasant and awful experience.
It's funny because he could play, Mario and Wario and Luigi, like different stages of his career.
Yes, I like it.
It's true. So, all right, you've collected your idiot so you can collect golden bananas that DK is going to break his teeth trying to eat. Okay. So, what opens the doors to get to other levels in this game? It must be golden bananas, right? No, fuck you. Why would you think that? You have to feed regular bananas to a fat hippo so that he becomes fatter than, I think it's a rhinoceros. And that causes a door to open. Well, that must not be too bad, right? Bananas. There must be bananas everywhere. Well, there are bananas everywhere. But you have to be a specific character to pick up a given banana.
Yeah, my memory of DK64 is far worse than my memory of Mario Odyssey. But I didn't play it back in 99, even though, this is an interesting part of the question, I think, in terms of how was DK64 regarded at the time.
I remember being mad at the time.
And how was it become regarded? It's most of the reviews I read were warm. They were positive reviews. It wasn't this is bad. That's not why I didn't buy it exactly. It was more just the feeling that even though they were positive, none of them convinced me it was better than Banjo-Kazooie. Or potentially the sequel to Banjo that was going to come out later. So again, someone who at that time was importing N64 games, and N64 games were pretty expensive anyway. It's this doesn't persuade. This is not different or better enough than something I've already got to buy, even though it's the game for, that holiday season in 99.
And I did play it when it came out, and I remember thinking the game is okay. It is playable and it is enjoyable, but then there's just hey, I need to open up this door. And I need to feed this stupid hippo.
No, but this is the bit which, based on when I did play it, which was in the, it might have been 10 years ago, something like that. I got an N64, an actual cartridge, and played it. It wasn't when it was on Wii U. Yeah, it was really cheap, a Japanese copy. Again, probably there was just surplus of them because the N64 just did nothing in Japan. But yeah, so I got an N64 actual physical cartridge and played it somewhere around 10 years ago. So it's not great, my recollection, but it's not super distant past. But what you mentioned about the fact that a particular character has to pick up the particular banana strewn around, and you have to go to a particular point to switch characters. This is where it's this is almost sort of inarguably busy work. This is not exploration. That's the point. How do we differentiate between busy work and exploration? And it's I've already explored this bit.
Right. I'm not discovering anything new either.
And I'm not really doing it in that different a way most of the time. Their locomotion or their abilities, they're not so different. There's, this experience of wandering around. But but this time, when I walk over the different coloured bananas, it will actually count. That's what it is.
There were bananas, and so let's be clear, the number of bananas you had to get to open the door was actually pretty fucking tight. It wasn't there's a ton of spares lying around. And so you had to go collect this shit. And sometimes they'd put Chunky's bananas in a place where Chunky's locomotion makes it a real pain in the ass to get there. So you wouldn't go to the DK barrel that's closest. You'd go to one further off that's higher up in the stage and fall down into it. It was a nightmare. But I'm not done. Oh no, I'm not done. So you've got your gold bananas. and you've paid off the hippo with food that's going to shorten his lifespan. And so now you're through. You're through the door. Great. What awaits you? More stages. All right. Well, let's keep doing this. You keep feeding the hippo. You keep finding the gold bananas. You keep finding more Kongs. You keep collecting their various ammo because every character had different ammo and they were different drops. This shows up in Banjo-Kazooie 2 as well.
More so, yeah. I mean, like, Banjo already had a lot of things that you picked up. Not, like, necessarily, like, golds, but a lot of them were, like, ammo type thing, you know, like they
or Mumbo's tokens or whatever.
That's true. That was one that was because you effectively needed those if you were trying to get every piece because you had to transform to get some of the pieces.
So you had to collect the thing to collect the thing so you could collect the thing.
Even beyond that, you got feathers to fly. You have golden feathers to do the invincibility charge. You've got to have the eggs, obviously. And then there's already quite a lot. But then Tooie's like, well, what about if we had different kinds of eggs that you could shoot?
And like, not like 2, like 5.
I feel like, they piled it on a bit in Tooie, but they never did anything as egregious, I don't think, as the different Kongs and that. I still feel like the original Banjo is the best of the 3 in terms of relative restraint and relatively like, okay, no, you just got, obviously it's 2, kind of, characters in terms of, it's meant to be a bear and a bird, but you're not switching, you're not like, you just get one increasingly capable, playable character. And, it's just like, you might have some kind of retraversal elements where once you've gained like a new move or something, but that felt more like, a kind of retraversal element in, like a Metroid style game or something than it did like the really kind of, overt busy work of DK64.
So, all right, so you've cleared all the stages. You're going to go fight King K. Rool. Well, certainly you must not need to collect that. Fuck you. Get back to collecting because you need the rare coin and the Nintendo coin. And one of those is behind playing a difficulty tuned up version of Donkey Kong.
Yep.
Have a good time.
They had Jetpack, right?
Yeah, Jetpack.
Rare.
Was it easy? No, they made it super hard to get those.
Obviously, this is to be couched as well. Some of this is the era in terms of trying to combat trade-ins and trying to combat rentals, and then also just the thing that you started with. N64, it's like there is. There can be gaps in the releases and stuff, so it's like, we've got to make it something that's going to last people a long time, and as long as we can, kind of make it last. And sometimes the routes they chose to do that were really quite sort of cheesy.
Well, they kind of had to with also because of the format, right? The cartridges versus the CDs.
That's a bit of I think that's an element in the equation in terms of if you were feeling a bit self-conscious about these CD games, they could just keep piling on the content, and we've got to kind of combat that perception by saying, well, look how long this can last.
Maximize what we put in our levels, basically.
Yeah. But the levels can be quite large because they don't take up a ton of space. It was more about like assets.
No, in practice, I think there was, but it was another thing I think that kind of put this idea of a sort of maximalist philosophy. I think it was another thing, along with the rentals, along with the trade-in, along with the paucity of games coming out. It was the rivalry, the kind of trying to push back against the notion that CD games were bigger. All these like really RPGs on PlayStation and stuff. I think that was another factor in why some kind of some of these decisions were made. Not necessarily this specific case, but in general.
So let's advance the clock a little bit to a game that doesn't get enough credit for being a fucking nightmare. And that's Star Fox Adventures, which you'll note we've never done a retroactive on.
Well, I still haven't played it. I mean, I've seen it.
It's one of the games I've threatened that when it's my turn to pull rank and say we are playing this game, this is the one that will cause a riot. Because, all right, I'm just looking at the Star Fox wiki, which whatever. There is a there's a section called items. And it's just all items. There are 53 distinct items in this Star Fox game.
Pick up items.
Yeah, alright, so let me give you an example. What about an Alpine route? What does it do? I don't remember. Light gems? Sure. Maps? Yeah, you pick up maps. You collect maps.
They managed all this before, like, crafting was a thing.
You buy maps from somebody who tells you you're trying to pay them too much, but won't tell you how much to pay them. You pick up meteorites, you pick up the moon passkey, you get the moon seeds, you get the Baphomodads, but there's also a Baphomodad holder, which you pick up to let you hold Baphomodads. There's a basket, which you can use to hold things. There's the blue grub tub fungus, the bomb spore, the bridge cogs. There are cheat tokens you can collect. There's the Cloud Runner flute, which is an item you find. There's a container, which holds items.
All right.
Yeah,
no, we're not done. There's the puck eggs. You get the rock candies.
I don't think that was the question anyway. Like, how many things must you collect in Star Fox?
But this is the thing. Like, these are what collectathons, when I hear that phrase, I think of. I don't think of Odyssey, where you're really just collecting, one thing. You're just collecting moons, and there's some other, obviously you can pick up money and stuff. Like, there's the secondary money that every region has to buy.
Yeah, the region-specific, monies.
But usually if you're just looking to get the big things, you get that pretty fast. Like, they make it super available, and that's the other reason why I differentiate that between DK, where you had to basically get a huge percentage of the bananas to get through the door.
Yeah, Banjo was similar, as I mentioned, when we did the closing music with the last boss. Like, if you wanted to actually fight that last boss, you almost had to get every jiggy in the game. It was way tighter than Mario 64, 70 stars out of 120, which meant that, you probably, technically, do you absolutely have to collect the Mumbo tokens to morph into the transformation in that stage? And, well, kind of not, but you kind of do, because you are going to need almost all those jiggies to see the last boss, which in some ways you kind of felt like, okay, maybe there was a bit less like throwaway stuff than there was in Mario 64. It does feel like there were certain challenges in Mario 64 that were like totally just like, oh well, we put this in here. I don't know how well it works, but it doesn't really matter because you don't have to do it. I felt there was less of that in Banjo-Kazooie, but equally, if you just wanted to see the last boss, you were going to have to do almost everything. So it's a different balance.
So where I was going with this, besides finishing the list of Krista's staff upgrades, Krazoa spirits, jukebox tongues, the white grub tub fungus, the wooden blocks, is Star Fox Adventure actually started to catch hell for this, like in its reviews. Like in the reviews, people were like, God damn, I'm getting tired of collecting crap.
Yeah, that's true. That was something actually I was kind of coming on to when I talked about DK64. Like, that reviewed well. Like, it didn't, I didn't buy it, but it wasn't as the reviews were really, like, negative. It was just, more of a kind of, a qualitative, on my end sort of issue. But
I feel like they had boiled the frog up to that point.
But with Star Fox Adventures, it was much more like I didn't buy it because there's more overt criticism here that it's just like having played, like Banjo-Tooie, you could kind of project from that, like, I don't need more stuff like that.
Right.
They had gone up to, I still enjoyed Banjo-Tooie, but it was definitely like, it was one of those that I felt was like better than the first one in some ways and worse than it in others because it was too much. They kind of pushed it too far. Some things were, there are too many different pickups or too many different styles of play, or some of the areas were bigger. So it was more of a chore getting around them, just like that kind of, let's push the N64 as far as it can go kind of philosophy ran into problems. And then it's like, well, we've got a new system where you can push it even further. And there was much more sentiment of like, it's gone too far.
Please stop. So, I mean, I think to the question of like, how are these games received? I mean, I remember there were some like, God, do I have to collect all these bananas in DK64? I can tell you when I played it, I got really frustrated at just the sheer amount of shit I had to collect. Just to advance the story, just to advance the game. But I really felt, because I played even the N64's Zeldas got into this a little bit.
Well, yeah, that's part of where, obviously you could talk about Star Fox Adventures and how it kind of was a progression or a kind of extrapolation of where they left off with sort of like Banjo-Tooie. But it is obviously, such a Zelda reference. It's as we go back to when it was an N64 game on Dinosaur Planet, like they did, that's what they did a lot of the time, was like take an N64 kind of template that Nintendo had laid down and do their riff on it to kind of, keep things going. So it was like, we had Mario 64, we had Banjo, we have Mario Kart 64, we have Diddy Kong Racing. So, this was their kind of riff on Zelda. So it wasn't just that they were kind of indulging their own, kind of whims. It was like, okay, Zelda is like this, and then we kind of take it further.
Right. And so there is a point where somewhere it's just like, okay, please, I'm begging you to stop. I'm begging you to stop taking it further. You have taken it too far. And I think that was sort of the breaking point. And we saw around that era, with the exception of some of Nintendo's stuff, the collectathon start to slow down. Now, there were a lot of 3D platformers, which is a more normal genre to do collectathons in, and there's reasons for that. It basically gives you, like, I'm going to build the place. Well, something needs to be here. What can I pick up? And Xenoblade actually runs into this, and they solve it by, like, just giving you experience hand over fist. You found a place. Here's some experience. Good job.
Yeah, again, it was a significant kind of thing at the top with the first game, wasn't it? Because it's like, okay, well, like, RPGs are about exploration, and they have been for a very long time, but they hadn't sort of explicitly rewarded you in quite that way before, because it was generally like, you level up by fighting things, and that's it. That's it. And I think that was kind of a significant moment and quite a nice way of doing it. And then they kind of that became a kind of consistent feature of all the games.
Yeah, so like incentivizing you to go to the place that we made was originally done by just putting crap up there you could find. And that was ultimately, as these game worlds got bigger, well, we need to make up more crap to put in the game world. And there's definitely a wind back of that. Now, I would say Odyssey has a lot of stuff in it you could pick up if you want to go pick up everything, but you don't need to. Even to get by most of the good stuff, you don't need everything. You don't need to pick up all the currency. I usually found, though, that I had about 80 or so of the 100 currencies every time I finished a level. So I was pretty close as it was. But, it's night and day compared to collecting in Odyssey is something you do. Collecting in DK64 is all that you do. And that's the difference.
Right. Maybe what's seeping in a little bit is that I didn't love Mario Odyssey. Period.
Fair. No, that's fair.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But...
Well, no, and I mean, yeah, I think there's some kind of legitimate kind of room for, especially, like I said, it'd be easier if I remembered the game a little bit more clearly, but,
right.
Like, about, how well they executed it. But I do think it was a similar kind of goal to what we had with Breath of the Wild, in that it's like, okay, so can we accommodate people who want to play in different ways? And that was very true with, even more so with Tears of the Kingdom, with the building and stuff. Like, there's just more ways to play this game. Do you want to brute force things? Do you want to, kind of, use a bunch of items? Do you want to get into like the cooking and the gear? Or do you just want to kind of, use these builds now and all that? Like, it really is about how giving players a bunch of different tools and then sort of expecting that different people are going to want to express themselves in different ways and giving them the opportunity to do that. And it was kind of, for Mario, which is such a, traditionally kind of point-to-point game, that was a little bit more, I think, tricky. A little bit more sort of, and so they probably did like kind of have some more stumbles with it, but I thought it was, the broad objective, I think they kind of satisfied. But yeah, it's, for me, it really is like the whole, like, it is collecting is something you can, you do in a game, but it's never going to be inherently good or bad. It's how it's deployed. It's the context it's deployed. It's the game design, and especially things like, the character locomotion and, the way that you explore is really the most important sort of aspects of it. And then, the way you kind of deploy the collectibles should just be kind of breadcrumbing a lot of the time. Like, we kind of sort of like, okay, you try to get, you want to kind of give people the feel of that they are exploring, they are finding things, but equally, you want to nudge them in the right direction, because obviously I think much more so than Nintendo, most companies, developers are going to live in mortal terror of making this cool stuff, and people just don't see it.
Right.
Like that is, I think, with Zelda in particular, Tears of the Kingdom, there's a remarkable kind of willingness on the part of Nintendo of like, yeah, people might not find this, but they do, as Guillaume mentioned, with the photo thing and the stables, they put these things in there to breadcrumb you along to like to see the cool things they made in the world, and that's really the clever, the great way of doing it. If the collecting happens in that kind of context where it's like, yeah, it's actually just sort of pursuant to seeing all this stuff that they've carefully crafted, I don't think really there's anything in particular to be upset about there, especially when there's so much that is optional. Again, I mean, I didn't have very many Korok seeds in Breath of the Wild. I've talked about it as we went through, piece by piece, playing Tears of the Kingdom. Hardly any in this one. I mean, I had obviously early on the expansions of your item, slots are kind of geometric. So I didn't need that many to expand my item slots to a reasonable level. And then I was like, okay, I'm fine. Like, I'll do the odd thing that I see if it takes my fancy. Like, oh, here's one of those, kind of, cube puzzle, multiple cube sculpture puzzles. Like, I feel like doing that, I'll do it. If I don't feel like doing it, if I'm in the middle of something, screw it, but, no, it just, for me.
I will just drop everything for those Koroks camping. I just, I can't also, like Addison, I can't leave that guy hanging, even though he only gives me 20 rupees.
Oh, I've stacked things on top of him rather than help him. I'm just like, you.
But that's the thing. Like, it's funny. In that case, it's a way of, kind of like, if those things were just like shining balls of light or something that wanted you to do something, but it's like, no, we make these sorts of characters, and, we've got these Koroks making these like silly noises and all. They wanted to be reunited with a friend, even just that part of it, isn't like, no, I'm a Korok, I want to go to point B. It's, I want to go to my friend. Like they're trying they're using these sorts of like presentational things to get you to try this, and in so doing, experience the geography they've made in a particular way. Because again, the way a lot of Tears of the Kingdom is, the geography can be kind of missed. When you just paragliding over everything, and you want to have the high ground so you can see everything that's, get to this place or whatever. You might not get down on the ground level and go, oh, actually, this, like, you're transporting something over this kind of terrain and these, relief changes and the weather, all this, like, you don't experience it. So they gotta give you reasons to pull you down and kind of, but still with that soft touch, still with that element of like, well, yeah, if for any reason you don't, the plight of the Koroks does not, like, sort of pull on your heartstrings, or, you're too engaged with other things. You don't have to do, it's totally kind of opt-in type of stuff, but I feel like that is doing it in a really kind of, carefully crafted and delicate touch, just really skillful way. And that's what counts, you know. I mean, if you were just like, there's still, I think, inevitably going to be a feeling of us like, yeah, you know, like I've said it myself. Like I generally am more inclined towards smaller scale, more structured, like carefully crafted, challengey type things. Like that is my general preference. But you know, when you do some of this stuff as well as they've done it, I can still enjoy it. More, you know, very easily enjoy a great deal. You know, if it were less skillful or even, you know, kind of cynical the way that it is in DK64, then it's less enjoyable.
Yeah, like collecting the seeds in Tears of the Kingdom is not the objective. Like the thing that you're doing is to go solve the puzzle. You get the seed just as is.
It's like an acknowledgement, you know,
right,
that you did it, and it has some sort of use. I mean, it gets, you know, because it's like geometric. It does get, oh yeah, I got 2 seeds for transporting this core up, but like I need another 16 before I could spend it on something. You know, it's like it gets a bit far off as the game goes on. Of just like, yeah, well, it really is more just acknowledgement at that point.
Yeah. All right. We're going to take a break here, and we come back. We're going to do one additional email, and then we're going to talk about some Pikmin. So stay tuned.
Speaking of collecting.
Yeah.
We are back. We're going to do one last email because it's going to transition us into our new business topic. Greg, would you read our last email?
Very well. Yep. So, Mr. Glub Glub writes, "Hello, RFN personalities. I want to know what's it going to take for John to at least try Pikmin 4. Please, John, update us as to your aversion to the franchise and perhaps consider that maybe you've not so much grown as a gamer, as that phrase is perhaps insulting, but changed as a gamer over the years. Refined, if you will. Perhaps you've gained wisdom from your many, many decades of life on this planet and finally matured into becoming someone who appreciates a higher standard of video game. An adult, if you will. Also,
definitely not.
With added gameplay and major quality of life improvements, could there be a chance you might actually enjoy this newest and latest edition?" The silence is deafening, isn't it, from John on this? You know, so he wouldn't even show up to entertain this notion.
This is written from the perspective of someone who does not know John Lindemann. These are not verbs that John Lindemann does.
I really wish that it was true that as you age, you became more wise, because we wouldn't have the world that we do.
Presumably not.
So I think in general you become more wise. It's what you choose to do with that wisdom. That is because you can weaponize your own wisdom. You don't necessarily become more wise in everything. You might become more insane in some things. That also happens as you get older. You might start to think that 5G is how the government's tracking you. That's what the G stands for. It stands for government. You know, people mature differently at different speeds. And sometimes not at all. So John's not here to tell us what it would take to get him to play Pikmin 4.
You know what? You have semi-serious point. If Ochi can't do it because it's, you know, adjacent to the Palamute concept in Monster Hunter. Like, the number of times the experience playing Pikmin 4 where, you know, I'm riding around on Ochi during a sort of, encounter, essentially, with one of the larger, more dangerous, enemies in the game. the same feeling struck me of just like, I really like the greater mobility and flexibility that this gives me in an encounter, as I did when I was playing Monster Hunter Rise. Just the fact that, when you're not kind of necessarily so much in that kind of attacking phase, you could just kind of get on your mount and circle and kind of wait for the moment to strike, much more sort of nimbly than you could before, either in the case of Monster Hunter or Pikmin. Because the biggest thing in Pikmin is obviously when you are just, whoever the various protagonists have been throughout the Pikmin series, and the Pikmin are following you around, especially if you've got some that are just, leaf Pikmin. They're not sort of fully, powered up to be a flower Pikmin.
So they're slower.
They get stragglers, and so as you are trying to maneuver around some threatening creature, it might be a big bloody thing with great legs that are stomping down, or big, toxic breath, or the tongue that swings around, this big surface area that you can essentially, in the way that you do with Pikmin, you can essentially take damage by losing Pikmin to any one of those things, because, a large part of you and your party is avoiding that attack, but those stragglers aren't, but then with Ochi, it's like, that everybody's on Ochi, and you can just kind of ride around and quite dynamically kind of avoid attacks and wait for when to strike. But also you can launch attacks from Ochi as well. Like that you do. There's times where you want to kind of dismount and then order them to charge, like a whole bunch of your Pikmin and stuff. So there are times where if you want to sort of fully attack, you want to get off, but you can launch Pikmin from Ochi as well. So it's not like, you have to kind of, get on the ground to strike either. So it's just this kind of flexibility is, I think, really cool. And, I don't actually think it would affect John one way or the other, but it's really just a sort of, cheap entry point into, drawing a parallel with Monster Hunter in terms of just how, a similar sort of experience there.
We've often known that the best way to get John Lindemann to do something good for him is to deceive him. This is not new information. So you've really just sort of tapped into John Lindemann ploy number one, which is lie to him. It is one of the most effective ways to get John Lindemann to do something.
The weird thing about John is sometimes the peer pressure thing seems to work, and then other times he will pointedly make sure that it does not. Because they've was it Pokemon White or whatever?
He bought Pokemon. He left PAX, abandoned us to go buy Pokemon Black during PAX because he saw everybody else swapping survey data. And the thing is, he knew we were, he had been I'm not going to buy that. And then, by the end of day one, he was already making plans to go buy it first thing in the morning on day two, so he would have it. And he knew that he was going to get absolutely witheringly mocked. And he did. We were savage. But he caved anyway. He was getting peer pressure on both sides, and he caved. He caved so hard. He caved so fast. It was like a bad mining operation. It was over. And it was, but you're right. There are other times where the more we pressure him, the more, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that. So and I've done this with the telethon before. Sometimes just give him an option that you think he thinks is bad, that he thinks you think is bad, and let him pick the option that he thinks you thinks is bad that you actually want him to pick. And then just be like, oh no, we're going to do an Ogre Battle 64 retrospective. Jesus, that's terrible. God, why would you pick that, you monster? And just have to go fucking 1, 2, I'm just going to cash in all my chips right now. I did it. So I think you're onto something here. I got to say though, Ochi bothers me a little bit. And here's my reasoning. They needed to give him, either make him upright or give him another set of feet. The fact that he only has one set of feet but leans that far forward is not physics compliant with my brain, and it weirds me out every time I see him.
But that's just how the creatures in Pikmin are. Like, I guess they're all very back heavy, and so they can stand on
but he's not back heavy. He's front heavy.
Yeah, it's like that. It's very consistent with specific creatures. Like, the Bulborbs are kind of like that. You know, it is like a Bulborb dog, basically, but also just the general approach of this sort of uncanny, where it's like, it's kind of like, real, creatures, but, this, it has to have enough of a kind of wacky unreality to it, that you could imagine, like, they're actually, like, kind of clay models of things that a child has made, like a sort of child's version of real things. Like, that's really what they've always gone for, and I do feel he fits in with that very well.
Yeah, I think he's cute, and he's definitely not like some sort of bird head on top of a long snake body. It could have turned out very differently.
Look,
Pikmin designs they can go several ways.
Ochi. If a child made a clay Ochi model, it would fall face first every time.
It would, but it's I guess
the Bulborbs at least have a lot bigger backside than they do front side.
I'm kind of amazed in some ways this doesn't have an amiibo, right? I mean,
probably because they couldn't figure out.
But they would just have a big glass, because they're not afraid of having a big clear stand, are they?
Link's piss stand.
They're clear these days. It's only the very early.
Why did they make it yellow?
I don't know. I mean, the golden power, obviously, but
Luigi also had golden power. It seems
somebody got a little bit confused. Yeah, with it.
Great. Now I have to. John's not here, and I make the shower joke. Fucking hell! All right, move on.
I thought it was fine where it was without actually saying it, but you wanted to actually say it. That's fine. But
look, he's not here, and it's there's a ghost in the podcast. Is the problem?
The point
and John is the easiest to possess.
The point is that I'm sure they could have done one if they wanted to, but it just seems weird that we will get a Xenoblade 3 double pack like more than a year after that game comes out. But we won't
to come out
get
2 years on the 2-year anniversary.
But we won't get like an Ochi for this game where it just really feels like that it's kind of crying out for it. But there you go. As we know, in many ways, they have kind of dialed it back. For all but a handful of things, and obviously Zelda being one of the sort of exceptions. But that's more understandable than the Xenoblade one. But yeah, mate, I felt like they could have made one for because it's like obviously the old days when they were making amiibo for everything. We had like amiibo for Pikmin. We had the soft toy Poochie for Poochie and Yoshi's Woolly World. Like you put those two things together and you have Ochi right there, basically. But
I got it. So I think we've landed here. So you talked about how the Palamutes had amiibos as well.
It did, yeah, that's right. They've had two, actually, because there was the Subbreak one as well.
Yep, and so John bought those amiibo.
So, yeah, it's not just having Ochi in the game. If we could get an amiibo, that is going to be the thing.
Yeah, so he's going to buy the amiibo before he buys the game because it's dog-like creature amiibo, and he's in. We got him at that point. So now we just have to rope him in with the game and give the amiibo something important to do that really makes it compelling in the game. And by that, I mean it's going to drop one dollop of the Pikmin juice nectar every 24 hours. You can use it. That's it. That's the compelling use case for the Ochi amiibo. And that's it. We got him, boys.
Yeah, I like it. Or you get a special edition, and instead of the Halo cat helmet, it would be the Olimar, space helmet.
The whistle built in.
See, I think John would not buy another cat helmet because he knows we'd make fun of him. It's that like resistant to peer pressure thing. Like this time, he's too aware that we would just immediately jump down his throat.
Plus, how many helmets does his cat actually need?
I don't believe he presently has any cats.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. That is the ultimate reason why I do not believe he needs any cat helmets.
And of course, I mean, you know, that moniker has never been facetious. It was always meant to be taken strictly literally, that you put it on your cat's head.
Yeah, his cat's name was Master Chief. Yes. Honestly, I say that, but now that it's out of my mouth, John Lindemann's cat's name is Master Chief is an entirely plausible phrase that could possibly be true.
Sure. Yes, my cat's name is also Master Chief.
Jeez.
The also is referring to both of his cats, by the way, not a different person's cat. They are both named. It is very confusing, which is a good thing is that cats don't give a shit if you call their name anyway, so it's probably fine. I find the amiibo to Pikmin pipeline here to be particularly convincing as a mechanism.
I think it is essentially a fruitless endeavor, but if any possible route or pathway were going to take us there, I think that might be it.
Well, I mean, the thing is, even if we're successful, it's still a fruitless endeavor. We gain nothing from it.
Sure.
But I was kind of wondering just more generally, not about John, but about like the Pikmin franchise's appeal in general, like how they can convince people who won't give it a shot to give it a shot. And I'm kind of coming out blank because the people like me, like Greg, like, you know, well, the people who play Pikmin games know that they are fairly different from one from the next. We'll talk about that in a few minutes. But to the casual observer, like they all pretty much look the same, and it's it's kind of an issue. You know, like part of the problem I think is that like the Pikmin and the main character, like they pretty much always look the same. There's not and like the Pikmin designs are so simple, right? They're just one color. They just have one feature on their face that the other colors don't have.
Right.
Like they're so simple that like the environments definitely have been upgraded a lot, but like
they're still in the same like trying to do realism style though.
Right. But
I always wonder if, to your point, like maybe a dramatic departure from the art style, like step away from the realism. We're not getting Duracell batteries in here anymore.
I think you know, say that they have terraformed the planet so that they don't have to wear a spacesuit anymore. They don't, you know, we don't have the threat of Olimar running out of air and dying like you had in the first game. And this allows them to have a character with long flowing hair that billows out like Shibigami Tensei 5.
There you go.
That, I think, would bring it every... You know, if we have sort of Olimar the Nahobino character design just running around the PNF 404 or whatever it's called, then you could bring a whole different demographic to Pikmin.
That's true. Maybe you'd have to argue or bribe Pikmin for them to join you.
Yes.
For a minute there, I thought you were saying PNO3. I was like, oh, God, we're going to have Olimar.
Yeah. No,
Olimar's caked up and dancing.
They've got the hair. You know, I mean, we were talking about the whole topic of character design last week, but we didn't mention, you know, the flowing hair, you know, of SMT5, which is just hypnotic. I unironically love that in that game. It's brilliant. But Vanessa Schneider or whatever.
Yeah,
Vanessa.
How do we both remember that her name is Vanessa M. Schneider 20 years on?
I think it's Zed Schneider,
Zed,
actually.
yeah.
I hate to be pedantic, but especially it's one of those that you should not take pride in knowing. But
no.
I can at least I do own that game, and I've played
so do
it.
I.
But, yeah, so it's not just...
It is remarkably not memorable. In a like almost impressive degree.
It's a game called Product Number 3.
It sure is.
Sure.
Right.
I actually quite like it in some ways, but it sure is what it is. It's a sort of somewhat hastily cobbled together thing that could be regarded as an exclusive for the GameCube.
It could have been a simple 2000 series game where they literally just numbered them. It was like simple 2000 series number 41.
No, it's a kind of interesting prototype for a game, you know what I mean? Like I think there's some quite, because it does stand for product, but that also could have been what the P stood for, because there's not that much like fleshing out done, but like the core kind of gameplay, I actually quite. Yeah, I see the potential in it. It's got like a kind of mix of, obviously it's a 3D action game, but it's got a little bit of that kind of, it's hard to describe, like that discrete element that like classic Castlevania has of like, okay, are you attacking upright or are you attacking crouching, and kind of, it's like quite constrained, like quite exacting at times. Like I kind of thought that was an interesting mix, but because the game is so brief and, you can't really do that much interesting with it, basically. But
I mean, they could have called it Simple 2000 Volume 37, The Shooting - Double Shinryu, which is actually the name of Simple 2037. It would, as long as Shinryu is something else, it would be very accurately named.
Yes, but the whole thing is with these developer sort of interviews that they've published about Pikmin 4. I think we kind of covered this a little bit last time. That Miyamoto's there, sort of musing about why hasn't it been more popular, and it hasn't had the best of luck in terms of the way the games have lined up with Nintendo's various ups and downs with the popularity of their hardware, to have, 2 games on GameCube, a 3rd game on Wii U. It's just not fertile ground, even when you can do ports, with the new Play Control games or Pikmin 3 Deluxe.
Yeah, those were pretty late on the Wii anyway, right?
Yeah, when even the Wii was losing steam at that point. And then obviously, Pikmin 3 Deluxe did pretty well, relative to what you might hope for that, in terms of it did sell a few million. So that's like not, to be sniffed at when it isn't a new game. But there's a lot about this game, it seems to me, that is quite sort of, targeted at making it more accessible, at making it more kind of inviting for people. And, so I guess there's some mixed feelings for me about it as a very veteran Pikmin player, who was there from the beginning, because it's like you do have, a fair amount of a feeling of like, this is not exactly laser targeted at me, but I really think where that kind of melts away into insignificance is that this is, and I've not played, really Pikmin 3 Deluxe, to any great degree. It played the demo, when that was, when they did that. And I did play Pikmin 3 on Wii U a little bit on the gamepad with the touch controls patch that they did, which I think was a nice thing to do. And I think it kind of, worked, fairly well. And it was nice to be able to do off TV play that way, but the game wasn't designed around it. This is the portable Pikmin for me. It's just like, okay, we have taken Pikmin and made it something that works great for playing a game portably, because because it's like the greater kind of control that you have with Ochi in particular, because of the more relaxed attitude towards time pressures. Really, it's just the end of the day, basically, that you're worried about at this point, because you're going to spend time underground. Time is suspended down there, essentially. You don't have 30 days worth of air. You don't have to keep making juice to feed you from fruit. Like, this more laid back take on it, I think, makes it a great portable game. And I probably would have liked to put even more time than I have in the past week, but because of that, I've put a shitload of time into it. Like, no way would I have put this much time into Pikmin 3 in a week, when it's like, okay, well, we've got the gamepad over here and we've got the Wii remote and I'm in front of the TV and all that. Like, Pikmin 3 was very much like, you always kind of like planned that, all right, I will set aside an hour to play Pikmin 3 when I played through it the first time. Like, that's the way that was. Whereas with this, much more casual, and I don't say that in the sort of semi-pejorative way of, the Wii era of, all this, this hardcore
Relaxed.
games, this casual games and all this sort of, I mean, literally, I have played it casually while I've had a baseball game on, or, various other things, like just sneaking in little bits here, there, and it works. And I just can't imagine, like, playing Pikmin 3 that way at all, even in the deluxe version. So I think, while it's aimed at making it more commercially successful and getting more people in, it's working for me right now. No doubt about it.
Yeah, it's working for me too, and it's having the opposite effect, I guess. I'm playing it more hardcore, I suppose, because the days are so short. It gives you that I can sneak in one more turn kind of thing to it,
Sure,
and the caves are the same way. The caves are pretty short. The floors, each floor of a cave is pretty short. So, you finish one and you're like, well, it doesn't take that long. I can do the next one. Maybe I can finish this cave entirely. Well, and now I can finish the day, but I can go pick up this and that. Or maybe start another cave. I've got time. So
no, that's one of my favorite things. Actually, is like there's a cave, because there's that red part of the clock, isn't there? Where it's almost sundown. The chimes start, and it's like you've got to gather your Pikmin up before the end of the day. You can't get in a cave at that late in the day, so you've got to get in before that starts, and just like that, bringing up the map and thinking, is there one of these that I can get to before the chimes start? Yes, let's just sneak another cave in before and the thing is, it's completely meaningless, really. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
What really have you achieved by cramming this cave exploration into this day rather than the next day? Not much, but it's just it's a little fun thing. And that's the thing, even though this game has like such modest time pressures, the history of playing at the other games, in particular 1 and 3, you can't really switch that part of your Pikmin brain off. Like, even when you're in the underground, there's every now and again, I'm like in the middle of thinking, okay, well, I'll send Ochi here and I'll do that. And then you're like, no, I don't need to do any of that. Cause time stands still, but you still have that instinct because it's so kind of ingrained.
Yeah. So as I said, like, all the Pikmin games are fairly different from one another, and so one of the things about this game is that it doesn't replace Pikmin 3 Deluxe at all, which I really enjoyed, and which was all about multitasking. You had 3 different captains, and sometimes you needed 2 of them or 3 of them in the same spot to solve some light puzzles where one would throw the other over a cliff or whatever, to then be able to carry on, like, to go to, do the task that needed to be done on the other side. But most, like, so and that would happen in the story mode mostly, but then, like, you had these challenges that are just like these 5-minute collect all the treasure that you can challenges, or kill all the enemies and bring them back to base challenges. And so you had to plan very carefully how you were going to try to clear the level as fast as you could to get bonus points. It was all about multitasking. It was very satisfying. I've described myself playing it like with like a little the gamepad on the stand in front of me, and like me with the pointer, the remote, and just like probably looking like an idiot with just like the whole setup, like me looking at the TV and the gamepad, and like directing the other captains here and there so that they would be ready to pluck Pikmin and then go make them do stuff. So I loved that game. Pikmin 4 doesn't feel like that at all. It brings you back to only 2 playable characters, that you can switch between. But because they don't have the same abilities, it doesn't seem as beneficial for you to separate them. Like, it really illustrates or underlines how I call my guy the captain, but I don't think he's a captain. He's just like the rescue guy. Anyway, the player character can't do much at all. But when you have Ochi, basically you almost don't need the Pikmin anymore, especially when he's fully upgraded, because you can make him impervious to like all the elements basically. And so from there, it's like, okay, like this electric barrier is bugging me, then I can send Ochi. Oh, this thing is blowing bubbles that are bothering my Pikmin, I can send Ochi. But
he basically invalidates the rest of the game.
But you do have to build up to that point. You got quite a lot of rescues. That's what it's predicated on. The skill points for Ochi. It's a bit of a tenuous connection, but basically somehow every time you rescue some of the bafflingly large number of people that have washed up on the shores of this particular planet, it really is sort of going for mirror status of this sort of Bermuda Triangle of the cosmos at this point. It's not just Olimar's sort of ineffectualness that keeps coming back now. But every time you rescue one, you said this somehow encourages Ochi to be able to gain new skills, and so it gives you a bit of agency as well. It's like, do you want to obviate the need to be so reliant on the different elemental needs of the Pikmin and kind of put points in that part of Ochi? Or do you want to just make him a wrecking crew? Just give him like the most ridiculously powerful charge attacks and chomp attacks so that he's not like resistant to everything, but God, he can kill stuff really fast. Now, of course, eventually you'll have enough rescues to have all of these things at once. But, It does give you that bit of agency as, in that middle part of the game, especially. I think it's kind of interesting.
Yeah. But like, again, like the captain is not upgradable to that extent. So Ochi is really like this really powerful upgradable weapon that is also like your jump, and so because the captain can't jump by himself, and Ochi is required to do a lot of the platforming that this game adds that was not really in the series before. I just find it way more beneficial to always, most of the time to be riding on Ochi, like never separated from the main character. And, and
if you should find yourself with him not on screen, everyone should be asking, where's Ochi?
Absolutely, yeah. But like even in the Denduri challenges, which is this game's basically the challenges from in Pikmin 3 or 2 or 1, like the kind of the more tightly designed how will you get all this treasure back to your base in 5 minutes thing.
You have a time limit, so
right.
You've got that direct pressure.
Yeah, but like even in those stages, like it's much better. Like, okay, Uchi, we're gonna go around and we're gonna grab as many of the Pikmin as we can, and we're gonna unlock as many of the shortcuts as we can, kill the enemies along the way, and by this point, like Ochi is hyper powerful also, like during combat. So like do a first run around and then go collect the treasure. The Pikmin at this point are almost just useful for bringing that treasure back to base.
Yeah, well, they give you specific kind of bits of treasure. Yeah, the different kinds of treasures gives you like the way that the different ways you want to deploy what you've got, right? So you've got like certain ones that like the pile of gold, like nuggets or whatever they are. So it's like that's as a pile is worth a decent amount of sparklium or whatever, but it'd be pointless to send Ochi to it because he could only kind of put one bit of gold in his mouth and then run off with it. Right. Whereas, the Pikmin, obviously, you've got a bunch of them. They can each carry one bit. You can do that. Same with the energy kind of currency crystals or whatever, things like that. And then the small fry enemies that might only need a single Pikmin or 2 or 3, but then with Ochi, he eventually with the upgrade has the strength of literally like 100 Pikmin. So if you get like some of the really big things, the heaviest treasures, that he's huge for that. But especially like the head-to-head Dandori battles, where you're going up against another kind of captain-like character. Like, you will get tug-of-war scenarios in that, where it's like you get the bomb, for instance, where it's like there's the sneak bomb, I think they call it. It's not terribly sneaky, I have to say. But
right, they alert you when it shows up. So.
So, I mean, why is it called that? But like, that's a classic tug-of-war scenario, because it's basically it's the one thing that instead of taking it to your base, you want to push it to theirs, and they want to push it to yours. But, if you just send Ochi in there, and he's got the pulling power of 100 Pikmin, like, they are going to find it tough to win that. So it's keeping him sort of reserved for some of those really big, then there's like when the golden pair shows up, the sniffer or whatever, that's worth a lot. And that's like really quite heavy. So it's like you kind of, he's really useful, but sometimes I've found myself in those kind of battles, like not wanting him doing something kind of small fry when he needs to be around for like the big moment in the battle where it's going to come down to, do we get this really valuable treasure instead of them? Or, do we put the sneak bomb in their kind of base? And the thing is, once the sneak bomb goes off, like, their points don't just go away, they sort of turn into like items, which again can be quite heavy, and you want to get Ochi on the heaviest one, bring it back straight away. That then converts into your score instead of theirs. They aren't getting it back, so it's he is so useful.
Right. And so those are the Dandori battles, but there are also Dandori challenges where it's just a challenge against the clock. But even in those, like, I don't need to be away from Ochi. I don't need to control two different groups of Pikmin with two different leaders. But maybe that will change, though, like, once if I ever try to perfect my scores even beyond what's required for the platinum medal. Yeah. But yeah, like, it's a different feel. Like, it's almost like a character action take on
it's
Pikmin.
Getting closer, isn't it? Like, especially the feeling that, with Ochi riding around on him, not having that huge trail of Pikmin behind you all the time, and, the way he can attack, and then the Pikmin spring from his back directly onto them and all that kind of stuff. Like, it's getting closer to a sort of more orthodox, kind of action game in that way. But I think it does still retain, a fair amount of individuality at the same time. I mean, for me, I guess, certainly this oversimplifies things, because there are differences. Each of the games has sort of certain unique qualities, or, the various characteristics come together in a different way to give a different feel. But where Pikmin 3 was, to some extent, much more of a sequel to Pikmin 1 than it was to Pikmin 2, this is a sequel to Pikmin 2. It's, we could probably all be grateful that Nintendo is not like Square Enix in this way, but they could almost be called like Pikmin 1-2 and Pikmin 2-2. Like, that's
God damn it.
Especially like big, again, I've said this a million times, if I haven't played Pikmin 2 in nearly 20 years, the memories it brought back of being in the caves and seeing certain enemies, like the like weird wraith thing with the steamrollers, it's like, God, I'm back here. I'm back in the trauma of that fucking thing. It really did bring back all that kind of bit of like, this is much more like, okay, looking at, that spin that Pikmin 2 took on the Pikmin concept of like, okay, how do we make it bigger? We talked in the previous segment, this sort of more maximalist, kind of design philosophy. Like, it's much more in that vein than Pikmin 3 was. And the thing is, I mean, I really, really love Pikmin 3, and I thought it was, I'm sure I've said this on the show, I thought it executed on what it was trying to do, and, to a fair extent on kind of what the first Pikmin game was trying to do, so well that I found it somewhat difficult to like how they would be able to follow that up if it was just trying to do something in the same vein. And so in some ways, maybe it shouldn't be a surprise that they haven't done that. They have instead gone like, okay, this sort of branching off with Pikmin 2, how do we do that better? How do we execute on that spin on the Pikmin concept better? And it definitely is, I think, again, ambiguity about how long ago it all was taken into account when it comes to Pikmin 2. I think it's far more successful in sort of this maximalist take on the Pikmin concept than Pikmin 2 was.
As you noted last time, the dungeons, the caves are much more puzzle oriented. They're much more they're designed in the first place. I think that the Pikmin 2 had procedurally generated caves, and there wasn't necessarily much that was interesting about them. So these caves here, much more interesting, lots of puzzles, and they are the place where I will separate Ochi from the captain, because you have to, because of puzzles. But not necessarily for strategy, No, it's interesting. And again, like I'm kind of, I don't mind that it's different, because, Pikmin 3 Deluxe is playable on the Switch. Pikmin 1 and 2 are playable on the Switch.
It's all there, yeah.
Yeah, so you can just pick the one that you prefer and play it on the Switch. That's pretty neat. 4, I really, super pretty, Ochi's a good boy, all of that stuff. And it is, the caves are way more fun than Pikmin 2 for me, and also, the outside areas, really beautiful, and they give that feeling of discovery that you get from Zelda, basically. I'm always wondering, okay, what's going to be next, and what am I going to find here? And finding interesting stuff. I'm not checking things off a list. I'm just, I genuinely want to discover, okay, there's this pond. Now I have blue Pikmin. Let's go see what's in there. And then usually, it's worth it. So yeah, I'm super happy. I actually rolled the credits earlier today. There's more stuff, as the reviews have said. There's a post-game content, so I'm eager to dig into that. But it's been, a really good experience. Took me about 20 hours. I'm not sure. I've seen some people show their screens 30 hours, but now I can't remember if that was to get to the credits or if that was to get everything in the game. So who knows?
Yeah,
maybe
I've heard much lower times if you just want to get to the credits.
Oh, right. Yeah. Like I said, it doesn't seem like, I didn't mainline it to the credits by any means. I spent the first couple of areas. Well, the first area I did 100%. The second one I got very, very close to 100%. Then even with the other areas, which I've still got quite a few treasures to I would kind of go back and at least get what I felt was a respectable amount of the treasures and rescues from those places before kind of moving on, but it doesn't really matter what order you do it in. You're just doing it in whatever order you feel like. That's just the way I was kind of doing what I wanted.
I went in 100% of the first 4 areas, basically, before going for the
So that's the thing. It's just these treasures and all that. There's an awful amount. It's a low, especially some of the areas. It's 80 odd or something. And some of those are quite minor, I guess. It might just be a few different individual pieces to essentially one treasure or something. But it's there's so much stuff to find, and they have this kind of it's a little thing, and again, most of it's kind of its own reward, but the way that you have sets, so it gives you that kind of sticker book feel of okay, if I get all the one type of fruit, or I get all the kind of Nintendo nostalgia stuff, you get a bonus in the energy currency that you can use to buy stuff for your astronaut character, or you can use it to like build bridges and other structures and stuff. You know, it's quite very fungible, I guess. You know, this currency, but no, it's you know, like just the amount of stuff that's there is, you know, it like I say, is more in that maximalist vein that we talked about in the previous segment. But it really is the design, I think, of the environments that you want to probe. You want to see what's around, you know, especially with the, you know, of course you can move the camera, but this lower to the ground kind of default perspective and all that, there's a little bit more of a feeling of like, yeah, I want to get to that elevated place and see more of, you know, what's out there and kind of, you know, see what treasures are there and all this kind of stuff and the descriptions and, you know, I think it's very, very well put together. I think the main thing that I probably miss the most about Pikmin 3, and I guess it's, you know, like I said, it's part of a couple of things really. The change in approach of like trying to make it more kind of accessible and kind of exploration driven. Compared to like Pikmin 3, that had a little bit more of a kind of action focus in some ways. Like the bosses, as it were. Like Pikmin 3 had like bosses in a way that neither of the previous Pikmin game had, and this one doesn't either. In terms of not just was it like a big dangerous creature, but it was very like traditional video game boss design principles in play in terms of like waves of attacks and like specific weak points, and it all worked with the pointer aiming and stuff. And, you know, not surprisingly, I'm sure it's still playable, you know, if you play it on Pikmin 3 Deluxe, like, of course, but, you know, it was designed around that kind of control scheme, and because, you know, Pikmin 4 is not, it's like you just don't get these sort of set-piece boss encounters that feel as, like, you know, really assiduously designed and interesting as those were.
Yeah, like Pikmin 3, you usually had like to take down armor with the rock Pikmin before, you know, to expose another part of the boss so that you could finally hurt it. Or you had to send your flying units against their flying units, and then, you know, like, so there were like multiple steps that I just haven't found in this game. Like, usually the boss fights in Pikmin 4 so far, they've been, you know, go meet the boss, get, you know, wiped out by his surprise attack, rewind, rewind, and then like avoid it, and then like just charge as quickly as I can.
I do wonder if the rewind makes it so the boss's basic strategy of I have a surprise attack you don't know about, it sort of makes that not an effective boss design, rather than it being just, hey, this is something that has a skill that you have to master.
Yeah, well, this like the thing is, like, this kind of surprise attack is not completely new to the Pikmin franchise.
Oh, I know.
The difference was that after that you had to go rebuild your army of Pikmin, and here you don't have to. And I don't think it's a bad change, because it's not as if you're gonna run out of things to do in Pikmin 4. Like, you've got other shit to do than to go pick up like yellow and red pellets to rebuild your army. So
I meant more from the standpoint of, like, with the rewind there, maybe it would be better if the challenge wasn't based around, I have a surprise for you. Ta-da!
Yeah. I still, again, some of this is just the instincts that were honed on, you know, previous games, you know, kind of just still kind of influencing me, you know, but I'd still have this sort of idea of, like, when I'm fighting something for the first time, you know, like, okay, yeah, this particular kind of unit that I have more of or whatever, you know, kind of just go towards him for a while, you know, let's send some of the blue Pikmin over towards him at the moment. Not because there's any advantage to that, but just to probe it, to see what it's going to do, you know, and then we'll come down with full force. I mean, again, mainly because it's just the way I played in the past. I didn't use the rewind feature that much, you know, to this point, but there was one case where I absolutely had to, and it was the one case where Ochi was actually a sort of liability, in that, you know, again, it's really useful because it presents a much smaller target. But I was fighting against one of the sort of spidery stomper things, and I was I got sort of thrown off by an attack, and the Pikmin were all spread out. It's oh no, they're going to get stomped. Call them together, and everybody get on Ochi. And then the foot came right down on Ochi and pretty much killed every single Pikmin in my party. So I was like, okay, let's see what this rewind feature's all about. and it's very nice because it just says like, oh, do you want to just start this floor over again? It's not like even like a checkpoint in a multi-floor thing. Like each floor is its own checkpoint, basically in a cave, because that's where this happened. So, definitely not something I wanted to cheese or completely kind of undermine any sense of consequence in the game, but appreciate it in a situation like that.
Yeah, but other than that, like I'm super happy with it. I'm having a great time. It's kind of sad that it's been a week. It came out last week, and I've rolled the credits. A game 10 years in the making.
There's so much more stuff after that. The credits, though.
You just need to savor the experience more, Guillaume.
I do find it kind of interesting, to be honest, like why the credits are there. I mean, again, I think it just mimics an element in Pikmin 2, which was like, okay, yeah, we did it. We got enough money to go back to Hokatate or Hokate, however that's pronounced. And, then it's, oh, but wait, actually, Louis still there. We gotta come back. And then, you end up with the president of the company as your second character instead of Louis. And
God, he really is Luigi. They literally forgot him.
So you've got another half of the game, but in Pikmin 2 at that point. And so it's again, it's a very much a sequel to Pikmin 2, and it's pretty similar in that way. And I still feel like I've got a lot of stuff to do, and I've put in it's getting towards 30 on the clock now, 30 hours, which, there's definitely some slack in there because of like I said, the much more casual nature of the way I've played the game. But there are plenty of stuff to do. I think it's just, like I said, if I miss anything, it's that kind of more classic boss style, kind of really specific enemy design that you had that made them these big set pieces that you just don't quite have in this. But like I said, I understand it, and it kind of fits the general feel of this game. And I mean, the whole sticky aim kind of thing, it's fine most of the time, it works and it helps fit in with that casual style. The only times where it really kind of feels lacking, and I especially miss the previous, with the pointer controls and stuff, the precision of that, is when you find yourself and you've got a bunch of possible kind of targets in a tight space. So it's like, okay, you might be in the middle of a fight with a number of enemies. And so it's like, okay, we've got, an enemy carcass here, an enemy carcass here, 2 live enemies here, and it doesn't know which one to pick. It's like you sort of, oscillating between which one. It's like, no, I don't want them to start transporting stuff now because the live ones will kill them. No, that there are times when that happens, that you kind of end up like saying, okay, let's actually kite the enemies away from the carcasses so that then I can get a clear shot. And so, you kind of, you can work around it and it all still works and all that, but I wouldn't be doing that. It is affecting the way I play because the control scheme, is running into that amount of auto aim inevitably has limitations when it comes up against multiple targets in a tight space. But for the most part, I think it works surprisingly well. But, I think you can tell also that they have designed the game around that.
Yeah, I just, my strategy is always the same in that case, like, just make Pikmin rain, just overwhelm the enemy, the carcasses, everything. There's just way more Pikmin than enemies at any time.
It's always that.
Yeah.
This was more of an issue earlier in the game when I didn't have the same numbers of it, because as we covered with the demo and stuff, it's like you start off and you've got to transport onions to get a bigger Pikmin party size. And so, as it went on, and especially with Ochi being, getting more powerful as well, it gets less and less of an issue because overwhelming force is simply far too effective.
Cool. Anything else y'all want to touch on?
No, having a great time.
Cool. All right. Well, emails, as we said, that was technically, I never ended the email segment, so I'm going to call all of that email.
Sure.
Goes to rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. That's rfn@nintendoworldreport.com. You could send your questions, comments, thoughts, concerns, descriptions of the physics of Ochi's locomotion. I think they are fundamentally broken in a way that upsets my brain. Or your proposals on how to make John Lindemann play Pikmin 4. Don't worry, he won't read them in the inbox either. He doesn't read that.
Have you seen A Clockwork Orange?
Unfortunately,
that's what I've got in mind.
Oh boy. So yeah, send them, please. We love your email. Sometimes we hate your email, and that's also good radio. So send it. Greg, what is our music to close out the episode this week?
Just sort of today, essentially, like the Oracle games went up for the Game Boy Color on the Switch Online, but that's not what I'm going with. No, actually, because on the 25th of July, I think it was, we had a sort of notable but also kind of grim anniversary in that it was the 20th anniversary of F-Zero GX. Which, is not the last F-Zero game, because in fact, in Japan, I think 2 GBA games followed it. One in 2003, and then another in 2004. And then only one of those was localized to America and Europe. But, in many ways, it feels like the last F-Zero game because those GBA games obviously there are notable differences, but they share a fair bit in common with the launch day maximum velocity. I'd rather imagine we might see those as certainly as a duo on the expansion pack at some point. They seem to be like doing that, like putting sets of things with the Oracle games, with the two of the 3 GBA Fire Emblems went up in Japan at once. But the 2 that we've got, for whatever reason, Sacred Stones got split off. But obviously the Mario Advance games went up as a set, so we'll see. But I do kind of look forward to maybe playing that one on the Japanese service. That is one F-Zero game I've not played that isn't like the DD expansion kit or the Satellaview thing or anything else. But yes, F-Zero GX is kind of feels in many ways like the last note for the series, and it's 20 years old. So that's pretty tough. Especially considering it has not been re-released the way that, the Pikmin games have just been re-released, or Metro Prime has just been re-released. So, I suppose the more games from the GameCube era that come out, it only kind of enhances the feeling of, where's our GX remaster if we can't get a new game. And so, to this end, I've gone with, again, I mean, I like the song relatively well, though there's probably F-Zero GX songs I like better, but we've already used one of them. I think it was a request, the Shotgun Kiss, the casino kind of motif. Well, like, that's really good. But this one, I'll confess, I've chosen as much, if not more, for the title of it. As I have for its musical qualities, because while it accompanies the Firefield tracks in F-Zero GX, the name that's given to this track is "Feel Our Pain." So that is what we collectively, as F-Zero fans, invite the rest of you to do on the occasion of the 20th anniversary of the last major game in the series.
Oh, there's plenty of it. All right. On that, it is time for us to go. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye-bye.